Most security advice begins with the same assumption. Be careful. Watch for red flags. Verify everything. But that advice quietly assumes something unrealistic, that humans can remain vigilant all the time.
Real environments don't work that way. Attention degrades, fatigue builds, context switches constantly interrupt focus, and attackers understand this better than most security programs.
They don't defeat expertise. They exploit timing.
Which leads to the deeper question this episode explores: if vigilance always collapses, why do we keep building security strategies around it?
Okay, let's unpack this because the core thesis we're diving into today is just beautifully blunt.
It really is.
Why awareness always fails. And honestly, jumping right into these sources, it is incredibly refreshing to see this said out loud.
Yeah, finally.
Because if you think about it, almost every corporate training, every onboarding seminar, every single memo from the IT department, it all boils down to the exact same message.
Just be careful.
Right? Watch for red flags. Hover over the link before you click it. It operates on this completely mythical premise that we can just, permanently flip a switch in our brains labeled security vigilance and just leave it running in the background forever.
And what's fascinating here is that the fundamental flaw in this standard advice, it isn't a technological one at all.
No.
It's biological and psychological. The advice to simply be careful relies entirely on humans maintaining a state of continuous high-level alertness.
Which is exhausting.
It's impossible. If we look at decades of cognitive science, remaining vigilant over long, unbroken periods is simply impossible for the human brain.
Yeah.
We are not machines. We don't have endless battery life for our attention spans. So when security policies are built entirely around the expectation that users will just catch every anomaly because they were told to be careful.
Those policies are structurally designed to fail.
Exactly.
But hold on, let me push back on that just a little bit. I get that we can't be perfect machines, but isn't telling people to be careful still a necessary baseline?
Yeah.
I mean, we can't exactly tell you that your awareness doesn't matter and you should just click whatever you want, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a great distinction to make. Basic awareness is a necessary baseline.
Okay.
The problem is when being careful elevates from a baseline expectation to your primary line of defense.
I see.
Telling someone to be careful is fine advice, but it is a terrible architectural strategy.
Because it ignores the reality.
Right. It completely ignores how the human brain actually functions under stress. We have three massive enemies of human attention working against it every single day.
Fatigue, distraction, and context switching.
Exactly.
And I love how the science breaks this down because it validates how exhausting a normal Tuesday feels. Let's talk about that first enemy, fatigue.
Yeah.
We aren't just talking about, needing a nap after a long walk, are we?
Not at all. We're talking about acute cognitive fatigue. Sustained focus degrades incredibly rapidly.
It's a biological limit.
Yes. Your brain consumes massive amounts of glucose and energy just to maintain intense concentration.
So it's literally burning fuel.
Burning fuel fast. Within hours, or sometimes even just minutes of deep analytical work, your biological capacity to spot a subtle discrepancy drops off a cliff.
Like a slightly misspelled email address.
Exactly. You just stop seeing it.
And right as that fatigue is setting in, you get hit with the second enemy. Distraction.
Right.
Because nobody works in a sensory deprivation tank.
No, we exist in environments where competing stimuli are constantly interrupting our cognitive resources.
Every ping from a chat app.
Every calendar pop-up.
Every conversation happening in an open office floor plan.
Yeah.
It all pulls crucial resources away from whatever primary task you're actually trying to do.
And that naturally forces the third enemy, which is perhaps the most damaging of all. Context switching.
Oh, this one is huge.
Shifting between entirely different tasks doesn't just pause your concentration, it literally resets it.
Resets it entirely.
Think of it like your computer's RAM. Every time you switch from drafting a complex financial report to answering a quick, informal chat message,
Which happens constantly.
and then you try to jump back to the financial report, your brain has to dump its working memory and reload the previous context.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
Doing that dozens of times an hour actively erodes your judgment. It drastically reduces your analytical capacity.
I have a question for you listening right now. Think about your own workday. How many times this week have you been implicitly told to just pay closer attention at work, despite dealing with a million distractions? Tell us your experience in the comments below, because I guarantee almost everyone is fighting this exact same battle daily.
They absolutely are.
And this science doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in the modern workplace, which is basically an obstacle course built specifically to destroy your focus.
It really is.
Yeah.
The operational environment we work in is chaotic by design.
By design, yeah.
If we look at the structural realities of a typical workday, we see 4 specific elements that guarantee our vigilance will fail.
Deadlines, notifications, meetings, and decisions.
Right. When you add those 4 elements together, you realize you are never operating in a state of perfect, unbroken attention. You are operating in a state of constant triage.
Let's really look at that triage state. Take deadlines, for example.
Okay.
Time pressure artificially compresses our deliberation process. If you have exactly 10 minutes to finalize a project before a client call,
You stop looking for subtle red flags.
exactly, because the sheer urgency overrides your natural caution. You just need to get it done.
Then you layer notifications on top of those deadlines.
It's a nightmare.
Notifications ensure your focus is fragmented into tiny, unusable slivers. You cannot deeply analyze a potentially malicious request if your smartwatch is buzzing every 3 minutes.
You just can't.
Then you add in meetings, which force those massive context shifts we just talked about.
Right, you walk out of a high-level strategic planning meeting and immediately open an inbox full of urgent tactical demands.
Your brain is scrambling to catch up.
And finally, decisions. The sheer volume of choices. The average professional is making multiple judgment calls every single minute.
Decision fatigue is a very real, documented phenomenon.
By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, your ability to evaluate risk is severely compromised compared to when you first sat down with your morning coffee.
Oh, completely.
Which of these 4 realities wrecks your focus the most? Is it the endless notifications or the back-to-back meetings that leave your brain feeling like scrambled eggs? Drop a comment below right now, because for me, it is absolutely the context shifting between meetings.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It takes me 20 minutes just to remember what I was doing beforehand.
Which brings us to a crucial pivot in how we understand cybersecurity and human error.
Let's get into it.
Because we assume a data breach or a successful scam means the victim lacked knowledge.
We always blame the victim.
We do. We think, oh, they just didn't know what a phishing email looked like. But the reality of this chaotic operational environment clarifies the attacker's true methodology.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because this was the massive aha moment of this entire deep dive for me.
Right.
When an attack works, we tend to think the attacker was this sophisticated genius who outsmarted our expertise.
But that's flipping the script entirely.
They aren't outsmarting us.
No, they are outweighting us.
They outweighed us. That is such a powerful distinction.
Precisely. They exploit timing, not ignorance. They specifically target those moments of fatigue, urgency, and distraction.
So they use automation to cast a wide net.
Yes, they don't need you to be uneducated about security protocols. They just need you to be checking your email at 5:15 p.m. on a Friday.
While you're furiously packing your bag to leave the office.
Texting your spouse about dinner.
Trying to clear out your inbox.
The normal operational environment creates the vulnerability.
That is wild to think about.
Yeah.
When the timing perfectly aligns with a biological drop in your attention, your actual expertise,
It doesn't matter.
your master's degree, your certifications, your 20 years of industry experience, all of it becomes largely irrelevant.
Not because you aren't smart.
But because your critical thinking literally isn't engaged in that specific microsecond. You're just trying to get out the door.
This is exactly why the idea of just be more vigilant is ultimately a myth, and it's a dangerous myth.
It sounds good, though.
It does. The phrase be careful sounds incredibly responsible on the surface. If a manager stands up in a meeting and tells their team, hey everyone, please be careful with external emails this week, that manager feels like they've done their job.
They feel like they've implemented security,
Exactly.
but it's not a system at all. It's just a wish.
Yeah.
It's a massive cop-out. It shifts the entire crushing burden of corporate security onto the individual human attention of the lowest paid employee in the chain.
And as the research states so definitively, human attention, without exception, will always fail eventually.
Always.
When a company's primary defense mechanism is hoping their employees never have a bad day, never get tired, and never get distracted by a crying toddler while working from home.
They were building a fortress on a foundation of sand.
Exactly. It allows leadership to shift the blame onto the individual when things inevitably go wrong, rather than acknowledging that the environment itself guaranteed an eventual failure.
Now, before we pivot into how we actually solve this massive structural problem, I want to say this. If you are having an aha moment right now about how your own company's security systems or workplace protocols are basically just built on crossed fingers, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube NCW EBDEV channel right now.
You really should.
You do not want to miss all the new deep dives and strategic frameworks we have coming out. Seriously, hit that subscribe button. It is the best way to ensure you're actually building systems that work. Because shifting gears here, if vigilance is a complete myth, what do high-stakes professionals actually do?
Right.
People in life-or-death jobs don't just sit around hoping they don't get distracted, right?
Exactly. If we look at how life and death industries handle this, they abandoned the idea of vigilance as a strategy decades ago.
They realize it doesn't work.
They recognized the severe limits of human cognition and replaced vigilance with something far more durable. Architecture.
Architecture.
Take commercial aviation, for example. Pilots do not rely on their memory to prepare an aircraft for takeoff, no matter if they have 10,000 hours of flight time.
Right. You don't want a pilot thinking, did I check the flap settings? I'm pretty sure I did. I always do.
Exactly. They use physical, mandated checklists. Every single critical action is verified by a written procedure, spoken out loud, completely removing the burden from their working memory.
The system doesn't care how tired the pilot is.
The checklist enforces the safety. Let's look at another example. Surgeons.
Operating rooms are fascinating for this.
They function on incredibly strict protocols. Before a single incision is made, there is a mandatory timeout where the entire team verifies the patient, the procedure, and the site.
And their tools, right?
Yes, surgical trays are rigidly standardized so that you literally cannot grab the wrong instrument without noticing. They design the environment to limit the entry points for inevitable human error.
And we see the exact same philosophy with engineers building physical infrastructure.
We do.
They don't just build a bridge and put up a sign that says, please drive carefully so the bridge doesn't collapse.
Right, that would be absurd.
They over-engineer the structure. They build massive fail-safes. They design systems specifically to survive the mistakes that humans are inevitably going to make.
Which brings us to how we can actually replace human attention in our own environments.
Yes, let's bring it back to the digital space.
The sources outline 3 distinct structural replacements for vigilance. The first is pre-event verification.
Pre-event verification.
This means confirming system checks and establishing boundaries before the risk ever actually arises.
Wait, what does pre-event verification actually look like for someone sitting at their laptop? Can you give an example?
Think of it like airport security. You don't wait until the passenger is walking onto the plane to ask if they have a weapon. You verify the environment at a centralized checkpoint beforehand. In a digital workspace, this means systems that automatically scan and quarantine malicious attachments before they ever reach a user's inbox.
Ah, okay.
You don't ask the user to evaluate the danger during a stressful moment. You verify the safety of the environment before the event occurs.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Take the decision away entirely. What's the second structural replacement?
The second is layered decision gates. Instead of one person making a split-second high-stakes choice under pressure, you build sequential controls into the workflow.
So kind of like when your bank asks for a 2-factor authentication code before wiring a large sum of money.
Exactly like that. Or a dual key system where a junior employee can draft an invoice, but it requires a physical click from a senior manager to actually release the funds.
It forces a pause.
It requires a secondary key, breaking the momentum of a rushed mistake. It acknowledges that the first person might be moving too fast, so the architecture steps in to slow the process down.
And the third one mentioned is distraction-proof procedures.
Yeah.
These are robust protocols designed to function even when the user's attention completely lapses.
Yeah.
I think of the gas pump at a station.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
You can walk away, check your phone, get completely distracted,
Right.
and the pump mechanically clicks off when your tank is full.
It defaults to safe.
Yes. The system protects you from your own distraction.
That gas pump is the perfect illustration of the core concept here. Safety is not a habit. It is an architecture.
I love that line.
We have to stop treating security like a personal virtue or a habit we can just train people to be better at.
That quote is absolutely brilliant. Safety is an architecture. Let's really think about that in terms of a modern car.
Okay.
Decades ago, car safety was entirely just a habit. The strategy was literally just be careful, keep your eyes on the road, 10 and 2.
That was the whole strategy.
But humans get tired. Humans look at the radio.
Yeah.
Humans get distracted by their kids in the back seat. So what did the automotive industry do? They stopped relying on habit, and they built an architecture.
They built lane departure warnings, automatic emergency braking.
Anti-lock brakes,
Right.
blind spot monitors.
Exactly.
The car doesn't rely on your vigilance to stop in a sudden emergency anymore. It has radar systems that take over when your attention inevitably fails.
That is the fundamental difference between awareness and architecture.
Right there.
If we contrast these two concepts directly, the superiority of architecture becomes undeniable.
Yeah.
Awareness, as we've established, depends entirely on human attention. When your attention degrades because you are exhausted, rushed, or distracted,
Your awareness degrades right along with it at the exact same rate.
it offers absolutely zero protection at the very moments you need it the most.
Whereas architecture works especially well when your attention fails.
Right.
The structure, the rigid procedures, the layered decision gates like two-factor authentication, they operate completely independently of your mental state.
Yes. A financial software system that blocks a suspicious wire transfer to a new vendor doesn't care if you've been up for 24 hours straight.
Yep.
It blocks the transfer because the architectural rules were not met. Full stop.
It's the ultimate difference between merely giving advice and actually designing an environment.
Completely different things.
Giving advice is essentially crossing your fingers, patting someone on the back, and hoping they don't mess up. Designing an environment assumes the mistake will happen and actively pads the walls of the room so the carelessness has fewer consequences.
That is exactly right.
I want you to think about this in your own world for a second. Can you think of a system in your own life that protects you when you are completely exhausted?
A personal failsafe.
Right. Maybe it's setting up auto pay for your mortgage so you never miss a late fee. Or putting a physical alarm clock across the room so your sleepy brain literally can't hit snooze without standing up.
I do that one.
Share your personal fail-safes with us in the comments below. Because bringing this all into focus, this entire discussion is part of a much larger progression.
Yes, to contextualize where this specific research fits into the broader picture. Earlier in February, the focus was dedicated entirely to the mechanical reality of cyber attacks.
The technical stuff.
How they happen in practice, the technical vectors, the malicious code. Now, here in March, we've explored the deeper psychological vulnerability.
Why human vigilance structurally collapses under the weight of a chaotic operational environment.
Which perfectly sets the stage for where we are heading next week. The goal for our next deep dive is designing decision architecture.
And I love how the researchers frame this objective. The goal of a security program is not creating smarter people.
No.
We don't need to send the entire accounting department to a 10-week boot camp to make them cyber ninjas.
No, the goal is creating better decision environments.
Right.
You want to build structures that reduce exposure regardless of an individual's attention level in any given moment. Which brings us to the core thesis of all this material. Security comes from architecture, not from vigilance.
If you design the environment correctly, the right behavior automatically follows.
It does.
You remove the friction of doing the right thing, and you introduce massive friction into doing the wrong thing. You stop asking people to swim against the current of their own biological limitations, and instead, you build them a boat.
That is a perfect synthesis. Relying on being careful is a guaranteed losing game.
It really is.
You are playing against an attacker who's just sitting there with an automated script, happily waiting for you to get tired, get a stressful Slack message from your boss, or rush out the door to a meeting.
You simply cannot out-vigilance a machine.
And you cannot out-vigilance timing. You have to build guardrails that catch you when you inevitably stumble.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? It highlights the immense value of replacing the exhausting, continuous burden of constant awareness with the quiet, persistent reliability of structural architecture. Stop trying to be perfect and start building systems that assume you won't be.
And that raises an incredibly important question, something I want to leave you to mull over today. We've talked extensively about how vigilance fails in cybersecurity and corporate environments. But if we connect this to the bigger picture of your own personal life,
Well, this is good.
if human vigilance is truly a finite, degrading resource, and all the cognitive science says it absolutely is, what other critical areas of your daily life are you leaving vulnerable right now?
Yeah.
Think about your finances, your personal health, your relationships. Are you leaving those areas exposed simply because you are relying on just paying better attention instead of building a fail-safe system to protect them?
That is a phenomenal, provocative question to chew on. What are you leaving vulnerable by just trying to try harder? We want to hear your answers to that. Let us know in the comments. And before you go off to build some life-saving architecture in your own world, remember to hit that subscribe button for the YouTube NCW UpDV channel so you never miss out on these insights. We will see you back here next week as we get into designing that decision architecture. Take care and stop relying on your attention span.